Visit us at Veteran House 4th floor, Moi Avenue, or along Mombasa Road at the Nation Printing Press Center. We offer outside catering service and do home and office deliveries. For inquiries or to place an order, call 0700-613-902 or email info@nascos.co.ke. Nation Staff Consumer Society Limited. Enjoy our hospitality.
It has been described as a silent killer. What exactly is pulmonary embolism?
This is a situation when a blood clot jumps into the lungs.
I had 2 clots and a pulmonary embolism that was suspected but could not be confirmed.
Pain in the calf, swelling of one leg, pain when breathing in. If you have that, go to the hospital.
We're talking about pulmonary embolism, and you can abbreviate it to PE.
Ensure you go to the hospital. Don't assume anything.
Sonadol Extra imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli kupambana haraka na maumivu ya kichwa, mwili na hata meno. Sonadol Extra, hakika maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
When you're facing stubborn stains, you're always in a fierce fight. Clean Soft kicks out stains. Kimateki.
There's no debate. Home is best. If you must pay for deliveries, use your NCBA debit card. Stay home. Stay safe.
Manze jo, historia ya corona jo imekuwa noma sana manze, usio.
Jitenge na watu. Stay at home.
Stay away from people.
Self-quarantine. Look for that secret place.
If you protect yourself, you protect each and everyone else.
Corona haina tiba. Tiba ni wewe.
Tiba ni mimi.
Tiba ni sisi.
Tiba ni sisi, au sio? Yeah!
This is NTV.
Live from the Nation Center, this is NTV at 1 on this last Sunday of April 2020. Hope you're having a good weekend and thank you for joining us. We have a quick news update for you. But first, a quick heads up on something we are doing tonight. We will be talking about mental health, especially in light of this pandemic and the lockdowns. We'd like you to share a short video with a question on any mental health issue you may want to be addressed to the number 0745 925 002. We will have experts joining us to address them later on. That number again, 0745 925 002. That's coming up tonight on Weekend Edition. Now let's move on to our stories making headlines at this time of the day. Several villages in Kajiado Central have been cut off by flash floods, which created huge trenches on the ground. Transport in parts of the county has also been affected by the floods, and the bridges have been swept away.
Torosei village in Kajiado Central can do no more than stare at the huge openings in the earth. The trenches formed after heavy rains pounded this part of the country in the last 24 hours. For some, getting into the trenches was the shortest way to get to the other side. Those who had to make deliveries on the other side took a longer route to get their intended destination in time.
Hii barabara ina link mashinani na town. Saa hii ukijaribu kuangalia, hakuna mtu anaweza toka sehemu ile kuja kuchukua chakula mtaani. Na unajua serikali sasa hivi imesema watu wakae manyumbani. Wakati ambao tunapigana na janga hili la corona, tunaomba serikali kapate kushughulikia hii barabara kwa haraka na kwa upesi. Manake sasa hivi kule mashinani watu wanateseka.
Hii barabara itengenezwe, maana kwanza wajawazito ndio sana wanakuwa adhiriwa na watu wakongwe.
In another part of the county, homes in Meto village were covered in water, with some homeowners suffering losses as their property floated away in the flood water. Trees were felled by the vast moving waters, with certain sections of the road rendered impassable.
Sijui watu watapita wapi wakija kwenda kwa hiyo soko siku ya Juma. Alafu kuna hii msaada ambaye national government pamoja na county government wanasema ya kwamba watapeana kwa wananchi. Hata hiyo sublocation yangu sijui watu watapita wapi wakiletea watu chakula.
Currently, the residents cannot transport milk to the collection center and they fear for the worst if this continues. Kajiado County Commissioner Joshua Nkanatha has urged locals living in low-lying lands to move to safer grounds. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Well, also in this broadcast this afternoon, we'll be speaking to two experts. We'll be speaking to Professor Hamadi Boga from the Ministry of Agriculture on food security, and also joining us will be Governor Mijungu of Tharaka Nithi County. They'll be speaking to us about food security in light of the locust and the floods, and of course the pandemic, the inability of the agricultural sector to open up and probably do the work because everyone is keeping off on the transportation of food. And we just heard that South Africa is opening several sectors, including the agriculture sector, manufacturing and retail. So we'd like to speak to them about food security in a little bit. But first, let's finish with our stories. Close to 300 families in Garissa have been forced out of their homes after River Tana burst its banks following heavy rains in the region. Now, authorities in the county say the displaced families are currently sheltered in a temporary displacement camp set up by the county government. The incident comes barely 3 months after the same families were forced out of their dwellings after the River Tana burst its banks following yet another rainy season. Arid Lands Development Focus CEO Ahmed Ibrahim says that a majority of the displaced families are also victims of the desert locust, which have lost their crops. They've lost their crops too, and of course, the displaced families now want the government to provide them with food, shelter, mosquito nets, and drinking water, and of course, any other amenities that is available.
Hatuna vyo, hatuna chochote, na mahema pia hatuna. Mvua inatunyeshea, hata vitu ya kula hakuna. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali zote mbili, upande ya kaunti na serikali kuu, wajaribu kutukimbilia, kuweza kutusaidia.
Maji yametusumbua siku 3, tumelala kwa maji. Mpaka saa hizi watoto hata tujui tutapeleka wapi, mvua inatunyeshea. Na vyakula ile kuhama naye tumeshindwa tukabakisha kwa maji.
For the last 3 days, families have been displaced, farms have been washed away. We are looking at an area from all the way in Kororamada all the way to Nanigi. People have been displaced. They had already problems of locust. They had also the problem, now there is a problem of corona, and now we are talking about flooding.
Now, truck drivers using the Malaba and Busia border entry and exit point want the Ministry of Health to speed up the screening and testing process at the border points to avert delays. The drivers say the slow tests have seen some of them camp at the border posts for a long time and several weeks, with their trucks causing traffic snarl-ups stretching over 2 kilometers. They say the situation risks exposing them, most of them that is, to the coronavirus, as a majority of them are without protective gear. The snarl-up is also causing fear among the residents of the border towns, who say the situation could expose them to infections. This latest development comes just days after the Kenyan truck drivers were confirmed positive of the virus by Ugandan authorities. Now, the government says it is doing its best to salvage that situation.
Watusaidie sisi tuende, sisi ni miskini bana. Mimi mwezi moja sasa sijaona kwangu, niko kwa hii barabara. Kila usiku niko kupimwa mpaka hapa hivi imeniuma, miti inawekwa ndani. Hapa hivi inaniuma saa hii, nawekwa miti huko na sauliwa. Damu nishatolewa, result sijapewa.
Ile jambo rahisi tu, waende kwa port, wafunge port kwa wiki mbili.
kama itawezekana, na hiyo ndio njia ya unaweza kuzuia hii ugonjwa isisambae kwa watu.
We are appealing to the entire public that as they engage with these people, they must keep distance, ensuring that they have put on masks and then wash their hands, because I'm sure they have to sell their commodities. But as they do so, they must adhere to the guidelines that are provided by the Ministry of Health.
Now, Christians in Embu have been challenged to consider their neighbors who may be suffering from various challenges in life. Archbishop Moses Mashamaba says that the COVID-19 pandemic, locusts and floods have taken a toll on many communities who are now in dire need of charity.
Even in times where places of worship have had to remain empty with only key personnel attending Sunday sermons, the clergy have decided to reach out to their flock to spread the message of hope, even as the circumstances bring many more to despair.
Rais wetu, mawaziri, kila mmoja wa serikali hata viongozi wamekuwa kwa mstari wa mbele kupeana mwongozo vile tutakaa ili tusichunge kutokana na kupata virusi.
In his Sunday sermon, the bishop asked the church to protect themselves and the community by keeping social distance and maintaining high standards of hygiene. Bishop Mashamaba asked the Christians to donate foodstuff and clothing for the less fortunate and to those affected by the pandemic.
Kawaida yetu tukiwa watu wa kaunti ya Embu na mahali kwingine, ukiwa na chakula si vizuri kuachilia mwingine apate njaa ama apate shida kwa sababu ya chakula. Tuwe tunapeana kidogo ama mingi ambao tuko nayo. Hata kiwa nguo ukiwa na 2 ama 3 pia mwingine, tusaidiane pamoja na ili janga litakuja kufika mwisho yake.
In the wake of the effects of floods from the heavy rains, he is calling on the government to ensure displaced people get temporary accommodation and food. Last week, the Eastern Region Security and Disaster Management Committee advised residents living in Lower Tana to move to higher grounds due to swelling waters from the 7 Forks dams. This morning's service was dedicated to children and was attended by 3 priests and 4 children. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Now, elsewhere, Northeastern Regional Commissioner Nicodemus Ndalana has warned the Somalian National Army against provoking the Kenya Defence Forces. The commissioner, who is on an official tour of Mandera County, cautioned that Kenya will not tolerate what he termed as Somali aggression towards the country.
The regional commissioner was referring to a grenade attack suspected to have been orchestrated by Somalia National Army against the Kenyan Defence Forces during a regular border patrol. The grenade hit the county's finance office in Mandera town, over 2 kilometers from Bulahawa.
Walirushiwa makombora kutoka upande mwingine wa Somalia. Na mimi vile ningesema na nitasema na Kizungu, ile kitu walifanya is unacceptable. Hatutakubali watu wetu wapigwe wakifanya kazi ambao wamekuja kufanya hapa.
Nobody was injured in the incident. The regional commissioner warned against any future provocation.
Wakipigwa tena, if they are provoked, hata wao wabebi kuni, wanabeba bunduki, na hata hiyo maroketi ambao wako nayo, tuko nayo, wawarudishie. Hata nimefurahia nasikia jana waliporudi pia hata wao walikipata kidogo. Nataikana iendelee hivyo.
The commissioner further directed Mandera security agencies led by the county commissioner to organize a meeting with Bulahawa administrators.
Kwa sababu Kenya ni nchi ya amani. Nimeongea na sisi county commissioner, nimemwambia aketi na timu yake wajaribu kama wataongea, kama itawezekana waongee na administrators wa upande ule mwingine.
Somalia had early this year accused Kenya of harboring and assisting a fugitive Jubaland Internal Security Minister, Abdirashid Hassan, also known as Janan. In early March, fighting erupted between Jubilant forces and the Somali National Army in Bulahawa. The attack brought Mandera to a standstill for hours. Ahmed Abdi, NTV, Mandera.
Now we're speaking to the Tharaka Nithi governor shortly, but before then, border riders in that county have been warned against carrying more than one passenger. According to the county governor, Mijungu, residents must adhere to the Ministry of Health guidelines in a bid to curb the spread of the coronavirus as prescribed by the Ministry of Health. Speaking when the county and national government leadership met to assess the country's preparedness, Governor Njuki said keeping the disease at bay requires the residents' input. Joined by County Commissioner Beverly Opora, Njuki noted that border operators were flouting some of the rules. The leadership also called on the local manufacturers to also produce affordable and reusable masks.
Kama kamati tumekubaliana ya kwamba sasa wahalifu wengine hatutawapeleka kotini, hatutawapeleka katika polisi, hasa wale ambao wanageuka na ile kafyu ama mikakati zile zimewekwa na sheria kuhusu ugonjwa huu. Tume-identify katika kaunti yote kama kamati zile centers ambazo tutaweza kuweka wahalifu kule, na tutakupatia kitanda na mattress, lakini hayo yengine wewe mwenyewe utasimamia.
Ukipatikana pali popote katika Tharaka Nithi County umebeba passenger more than one, hiyo pikipiki yako itabebwa, ifungiwe station na komanda atajua atafanya nini na wewe, lakini hiyo pikipiki iwachiliwi mpaka hii corona iishe, kwa sababu ukiambiwa upewe moja unabeba wili au matatu, wewe unataka watu wetu waishe ili upate pesa.
Now, public health officers and chiefs in Kilifi County have started a 5-day coronavirus sensitization program in a bid to prevent the further spread of the disease in the county. Several border operators were sensitized on the importance of cleaning their hands and wearing masks. According to David Kahindi, the senior chief in Mijungu location, most residents are unable to access the daily COVID-19 updates due to lack of radios and television. The residents are also said to have to be conducting their normal activities without observing social distancing. The government extended the restrictions of movement in and out of Nairobi metropolitan area by a further 21 days beginning today or continuing today. The government says the initial cessation of movement has worked to some extent. However, people are still breaching the order, and tonight our reporter Ruth Samuel shows you how easy it is to go past the roadblocks.
There are people transporting even in matatus into and out of the city. And once they get to a roadblock, they pay and come round the roadblock and walk and are taken again by an empty vehicle or otherwise.
Despite the containment order barring Kenyans from leaving the Nairobi metropolitan area, Kenyans are still moving in and out with relative ease. Tonight, we take you past the Nairobi-Nakuru highway via a common Panya route.
All right, 15 minutes past the top of the hour. We still have some time to go with our news update. And of course, as I said, we have an interview right after this short break. We're talking about food security in light of the locust invasion, the floods, and of course the pandemic that is ensuring that everyone is at home, and the agricultural sector has also been affected. How are the counties coping? How is the Minister of Agriculture coping? We're speaking to Professor Hamadi Boga from the Minister of Agriculture, also speaking to a governor of a county that will be telling us what exactly they are doing to ensure food security and there's enough food for the county of Tharaka Nithi, because Governor Njuki is also joining us alongside Professor Hamadi Boga. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Maritime Tips brought to you by Kenya Maritime Authority. Precautions for vessel and boat owners, operators, coxswains and passengers. Personal hygiene. Practice frequent hand hygiene, coughing and sneezing etiquette. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces on board the boats and vessels such as steering wheel, safety or guardrails and seats. Crew members, coxswains and passengers to regularly disinfect life jackets. Practice frequent hand washing with soap. Wear a mask on board a boat or vessel. Boat owners and operators to comply with government directives on movement restrictions within counties. Kenya Maritime Authority for safe and efficient water transport.
Daily, they are involved in the tasks of nation building, contributing significantly to the success of the society. The most vulnerable in the society, however, find themselves faced by various challenges that include lack of access to basic needs like healthcare, food, water, shelter, social protection, and even technology. These challenges are now more magnified by COVID-19, and every day for them has become a fight for survival. On Monday, 27th April 2020, the Nation Media Group will hold a live virtual Nation Leadership Forum from 7:30 p.m. on NTV. With the help of a panel of experts, it shall delve into the issues that affect various vulnerable groups in the society and seek solutions into how various sectors can make the challenges they face more bearable. Nation Leadership Forum. Engaging society, impacting the nation.
I was even seeing you. Mijungu.
All right, my guests are already here to speak to us about food security. Governor Muthomi Njuki, who is the governor of Tharaka Nithi County, and also the chairperson of the COG, Council of Governors, the Committee on Agriculture, and Professor Hamadi Boga, who is from the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. And of course, I have to begin by asking the governor, Governor Njuki, we have a lot of floods. Has your area been affected by the floods?
Thank you, Ken, and good afternoon to Kenyans, and good afternoon to Professor Mani Mboga. I didn't get your question very well, but I had, what did you ask, Ken?
My question is, there's a lot of rain pounding across the country. Has your county been affected by the floods?
Oh, thank you. Kanili has not been affected by floods per se. I think our grounds are usually high enough. We are near Mount Kenya, but we feel for the Kenyans who are in the lower side, like Tana River, and the rest of the country, like Elgeyo Marakwet, who are lower ground that are being affected by floods. Of course, we do normally have mudslides in several places, but we have asked our residents who are near the banks of rivers where you normally have slides to be cautious and possibly move away this time. Although the rains are not very bad to the extent that we have floods. We have very good spacing. It's raining very heavily during the day, and during the night, and during the day we have plenty of sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Our concerns are with the landslides that that area is also prone to. Let me speak to the PAS now. And Professor, how secure is the country at this particular time in terms of the food? Because there are concerns that most sectors have shut, and as expected, even the agricultural sector has been affected.
Thank you very much. My best regards to those who are affected by floods. The government is working through its various agencies to make sure that we mitigate the issues of flood through the State Department of Devolution. We've been in touch with the PS Sunkuli, who is working very hard over the weekend to reach the families and those affected, working together with the Ministry of Interior. On the issue of food security, as you know, we produce our food during the long rains and during the short rains. And last year we had very good long rains and also very good short rains. and most of the staples foods, we have a positive food balance sheet, which we have shared with Kenyans. It's on the Kilimo website. We have a good food balance sheet all the way to June 30th, from which we'll begin another food balance sheet because the season is beginning or has just begun. As a government, also we worked with our regional neighbors, Uganda and Tanzania, to make sure that food flows across the border. That has been interrupted a bit, not much, but the flow is slow because of the testing that has to go on, but the flow is there both ways. As you can see, I think there was a feature where we are seeing trucks lined along the Uganda border just to show that agriculture trade and other trade is going on, and that is what has been agreed. Also, the global supply chains are open to make sure that food flows from across the world. But as far as the local food balance sheet, it's positive up to end of June, and we have that data on the website. I think we had a story previously with NTV featuring specifically that debate.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right. Prof, hold on. And Governor, listening to Professor Boga in terms of the food security, he's saying that until June, we have a positive balance sheet. But I'd like to have a scorecard from the counties, being the chairman of COG, the Committee on Agriculture. What is the scorecard? How is the counties doing in terms of food? And when you're talking about that related to the locust invasion, and don't forget that towards the end of last year, there was a lot of rainfall that was also unpredicted, and possibly the farming activities that the Minister of Agriculture is banking on during the long rains could have not happened during that time.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to thank Professor Mboga for shedding the light on the issue of the food security we have, because we don't want our Kenyans to panic at all. We do have enough food, especially the staple food, up to June. And Professor, you can confirm that the ministry is importing an extra 2 million bags to be able to mitigate the problem between June and August, when basically in western Rift Valley and part of Central, we normally harvest our maize. Allow me, Ken, now to say that as pertains to your question on the issue of the preparedness during this time, we have asked our farmers definitely to continue on the farm, because the food security we have for the staple food is up to June. In the events that we have a gap between now and June where we do not produce enough, and we are lucky that we have enough rains at the moment. It's not like the situation has been affected by COVID. The rains are plenty, we thank God, and we asked our farmers to proceed and farm just as is, as usual, even though there's COVID-19, because of course the curfew normally affects only during the day. And our belief is that come July, August, September, we shall be having enough food, as it were.
Very interesting, Governor. But where do you expect to, first, what foods are you importing, the staple foods, by end of June? And from what countries? Because when we talk about COVID, it's affected across the world. So where are you looking to get this food from?
Let me respond.
Chairman, as the professor has put it, Ken, as the professor has put it, we already did a situational analysis of the food balance sheet in the country across all counties. And we do not have a deficit except for wheat, rice, which of course we do not produce most of it. It's usually come from outside the country. Of course, the country has not blocked the importation of rice and wheat. And I said that all the other staple foods, including maize, matoke, beans, pulses, sorghum, we have enough for the country up to around June. That's what I'm saying.
Professor wanted to jump in on this.
The deficit.
Professor, you wanted to jump in on this?
Yes. It's a global understanding that the food supply chain has to be open and has to be sustained, because there is no country that is food secure. So there have been conversations with the FAO, with the African Union and other global bodies to make sure that food security is assured for all countries. In the ministry, we have created a war room, which is tracking production. which is tracking markets, whether the markets are opening and they're working and they are COVID compliance, which is tracking logistics, whether the supply chains are being interrupted with and prescribing interventions. We're also tracking prices. We are working together very closely with the counties. So for each county, we have also prescribed for them to have a food security war room, which will be providing data on a regular basis so that we can anticipate any problems. I just want to correct one other thing. It's not the ministry that is importing. We have just reduced the duty from 50 to 14% to facilitate the private sector to import. And the Gazette notice was already issued last Friday. And the millers and mostly because the importation was for milling, so the millers have already engaged their sources of maize, and we are tracking that also to make sure that it goes well, so that the country can be food secure.
Okay, Professor, perhaps I should ask this. A UN locust forecaster indicated that East Africa might suffer in the coming weeks or months because the locust invasion is coming back 20-fold. What are we doing? What have we put in place as a country to ensure that this does not impact us negatively?
Locust control has been declared as an essential service. We have in store right now 90,000 liters of chemicals and more on the way. We have very robust teams in all the counties. We have trained all the counties. We have a NYS on the ground tracking the locusts every day, and spraying is going on. The only challenge that we have right now is rain, because spraying during the rains will lead to loss of pesticides. So there are periods when, even when we see the locusts, we don't spray because of the rains. Okay. What is happening right now is that some of the first generation locusts have matured, so they are laying eggs. And in the next 2 weeks, those eggs will hatch. And in the next 6 weeks, they will turn into adults. When they have hatched and they're hatchlings and they are on the ground, not flying, it also gives us an opportunity to continue controlling them at that level. I think by the end of June, July, we will see the locusts behind us. But we have deployed all the resources and with all the partnerships to make sure that we contain the locust situation. Right now, they are only in 12 counties. Remember, at the peak, they had reached 28 counties.
All right. Thank you, Professor. And finally, for Governor Njuki, Governor, has the Council of Governors mapped counties that are likely to suffer due to food shortages or even locust invasion and the flood so far?
Yes, thank you very much, Ken. And yes, it's true. We are involved in mapping out areas that are more vulnerable, and the ones that have floods at the moment are the ones that are giving a worrying situation. Number two, and that is only about 7 counties, which includes Marakwet, we have West Pokot, we have Tana River, we have Busia, and a few others. And we have already directed that the food aid that is supposed to go to the counties for the vulnerable people should first of all go to these counties, because of course we have people, despite the fact that the farms do have been displaced. Also allow me to say that the issue of the locusts, the counties that have been affected by locusts, this is not the ordinary locust that we had gotten from outside. This one is homegrown, and which makes it even more dangerous because it's well adapted to the environment. They were hatched and they are growing here. But that is not in all the counties. It's in very few counties which were very expansive during that time. And I want to support what Professor Mboga said, that there needs to be more vigilant and more, even put more effort in securing these areas which have got a problem of locusts, because it's not only localized there. The moment those locusts finish their food in those counties, they will fly to other counties, and it is going to be a situation that control. And that is the reason why all the motorized vehicles, all the motorized pump vehicles that we were donated by FAO, we agreed that they go to these northern frontier counties that are very much affected, where the others keep surveillance and continue doing spraying with the normal domestic sprayer. And my belief is that we'll be able to control them, because it could be worse than corona.
All right. Thanks, Governor Njuki, speaking to us there, and of course, PS Minister of Agriculture, Professor Hamadi Boga, joining us to talk about food security. And they are upbeat that indeed the country will survive past June, and even there are interventions in place. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on NTV at 1. Now let's move on. Traders at the busy Engineer Township Market in Kinangop have agreed to move from the roadside weeks after defying the county government's order. Now, the traders, led by their chairperson Jackson Waithaka, now says the decision to move into the proper field market was right. The chairman has urged the traders to move, but has expressed concerns over large-scale fruit traders who have built structures along the road and have not been affected by that order. He is also asking the government to sort out the issue of ground, especially during this rainy season. The Nyandarua County government has ordered the 700 fresh produce traders to move from the market 2 weeks ago. Right, in some businesses, Central Bank of Kenya has revoked the licenses of KD Money Transfer Limited as a money remittance service provider. This is according to the April 24th, 2020 Gazette notice, which indicated that the market regulator had undertaken this action in exercise of Part 44B of the Money Remittance Regulations of 2013. KD Money Transfer was incorporated in 2012 and licensed by the Capital Bank on the March 21st, 2014. Data from the Central Bank of Kenya shows that Kenya has received diaspora remittance worth 50.7 billion shillings between January and February of 2020. Now, tumbling oil prices in the global market are decelerating activities by oil traders across the world. A video released by the U.S. Coast Guard shows the enormous tankers distant from each other in the waters near the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach due to reduced demand for crude products stemming from the coronavirus pandemic and a stay-at-home order. Now, the tankers have no place to deliver their oil. Oil prices turmoil grappled markets once more Tuesday, a day after U.S. crude futures crashed below zero for the first time as the coronavirus crisis crippled global energy demand and worsened a supply glut. Now, the benchmark price collapsed on Monday to an unprecedented low of minus $40.32. Negative prices mean traders must pay to find buyers to take physical possession of their oil. The scale of the COVID-19 pandemic has forced medical research on the virus to move at an unprecedented speed, but effective treatments are still very far away. In the United Kingdom, scientists at Oxford-based pharmatech company are hoping to find a drug against COVID-19 within a year using artificial intelligence technology.
In mid-March, Exscientia received a set of 12,000 de-risked drugs or drug molecules and molecules that have been checked for human safety from a California-based institute. The lab has selected 4 different viral targets, which are proteins from the SARS-CoV-2, and are checking if they are affecting the molecules.
We have the protein inside the machine, and we inject drugs, and we determine how they bind to the protein, and from that we can determine whether it's a good drug to be used to treat against COVID or not.
Scientific coordinator says that this is essential to consider the small molecule drug route, as a vaccine may never be found.
Once we have generated all this data, in the spirit of this global effort, we will put all the data package accessible for everybody on an open source repository.
Governments around the world are struggling to limit the economic devastation unleashed by the virus, which has infected nearly 2.8 million people and left half of humanity under some form of lockdown.
In sports, the International Olympic Committee will allocate an extra $25.3 million to the National Olympic Committee and athletes to help them navigate the one-year postponement of the Tokyo Games. According to a statement by IOC, $10.3 million will be available to national Olympic committees to cover additional costs that they may sustain due to the postponement, including travel expenses and accommodation. The funds will be available to 206 member national Olympic committees based on their application, without giving details about the criteria which must be met. With that, the National Olympic Committee of Kenya says it will apply for the funds, especially with most of the sportsmen lamenting of the heavy brunt of the coronavirus pandemic that has left on them and their earnings. Olympics, which were originally scheduled to open on July 24th in Japan, will now take place between July 23rd and August 8th, 2021, followed by Paralympics from August 24th to September 5th.
Olympic Committee President, IOC member.
And Kenya Volleyball Federation Chairperson Waithaka Kioni revealed to the national sports that he will seek another term as one of the 5 vice presidents at the African Volleyball Confederation. Now, this confederation will hold its rescheduled elections between September 27th to October 27th in South Africa. Now, the Federation Elective Congress that is held after 4 years had been scheduled for June 15th and 16th, but it was later postponed due to the coronavirus outbreak. Kioni, who is also the Deputy President to the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, that's NOC, confirmed this development. And he confirmed that the new date for the elections has been agreed on. The position to be contested during the elections are that of the president, vice president, 5 vice presidents, 2 positions for gender minority, and of course for zone presidents. And Everton says they are appalled by the behavior of Moskin after the forward allegedly breached the coronavirus guidelines. The country remains in lockdown due to the pandemic, but private social media posts appear to show that Keane was attending a party. Now, Keane, a 20-year-old Italy international, joined Everton from Juventus on a 5-year deal last summer. However, he has yet to make a major impact at Goodison Park, with just 1 goal in 26 appearances prior to the suspension of the season in March. Of course, we still remind you that tonight we'll be talking about mental health, especially in light of this pandemic and the lockdown. So we'd like you to share a short video, about a minute or so, with a question on any mental health issue you may want to be addressed by our panel tonight on the number 0745. It's on your screen, 925 002, and we'll have experts joining us to address them. That number again is 0745 925 002. That's tonight on Weekend Edition. Thank you for watching NTV at 1. My name is Ken Mijungu. See you there. Good afternoon.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.